Floppy coppers don't bite.
Hello, and welcome to the Saladcast on Sunday, the 19th of September, 2021. I'm your host, Dan Train. Joining me today, Zachary Burgess.
Barely functional.
And Robert Kemp.
Pibbly pobbly podcast.
That sounds like Bippity Boppity Boo or something.
Oh, God.
Is that like a song from like Dead Knots and Broomsticks or something?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Is it from that?
I think Bippity Boppity is indeed. Well, it's either that or it's a Mary Poppins thing, right? It's that era.
That's what it's that kind of film. A very small and specific genre of sort of live action Disney British stuff.
Yeah.
British themed.
Disneyish.
I presume there's not
Britney's?
Dead Knots and Broomsticks is Disney, isn't it?
Yeah,
I don't
it
know,
is Disney.
Seems like it.
It most definitely is.
I don't remember much about it.
No.
Oh, and I'm lumping in what's the flying car? What's the flying car? That movie in with those
Chitty
I
Chitty
think.
Bang Bang.
Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Yeah. I feel like that's related.
See, I don't know that that's Disney.
No, may not be. I feel like it's a similar kind of weird genre.
Yeah,
Of like
British semi-quaint kids films. Semi-quaint. Overly
musicals.
Cockney.
They're all musicals.
Yeah.
And they're all super cockney to the point where Dick Van Dyke is not cockney at all. It's just a weird genre.
Yeah.
But there's definitely Pippity Poppity podcasts.
Pippity Poppity Podcast. Welcome. So, Zach's got COVID.
Is that the case? Have you had
Don't
your
just be
lateral
saying
flow
that
test? Well, it is a thing that people get.
Yes, but you can't be saying that.
Why? Can't you admit to it?
Well, not really, because I haven't. There's no way of telling. I mean,
Yeah.
I could have a test. There's plenty of tests right in this house, I imagine. Probably still.
Yeah, they're free, aren't they? The lateral flow
Well, and
test.
also there was a bunch that we had for the charity shop, obviously.
Yeah.
And I did one once when there was a suspicion about it, but it turned out to be It turned out to be a false positive on the one that was positive, and that wasn't even my one. So,
Okay.
but this is clearly not that, because it's just clearly. Well, basically everybody in the house got sick, and coincidentally, or entirely not coincidentally, my sister's child had been here.
Oh, no.
So you know what happened there?
Baby carriers.
Exactly what you expect from children.
Spreading the plague. That's what they're for.
But not the one specific plague, just a regular plague.
It's the standard plague.
Any old plague. Kids will pass it.
And it hasn't actually been that bad, I guess. It was like you had a sore throat on the first day, which is how I even knew that I was going to be ill, because it was just like that. Weirdly, considering how much I cough all the time, you would think that I'd have sore throats all the time, but I actually don't. I just never have those two things don't go together for me normally. So as soon as I get a sore throat, I'm like, oh shit, I'm actually ill.
Oh no. Rather than the usual sort of pervasive state of coughiness.
Yeah. So I had that first, and then that completely fucked up my sleep on the first day. And then yesterday I was fine mostly through the day, and then the sore throat was getting better. And I was like, by the time it was time to go to bed, I was like, okay, good, I might actually be able to sleep tonight. But then, of course, because it was like, oh, you've been sneezing and coughing all day, so what do you get at 6 a.m. when you're finally about to have some good sleep? You get a nosebleed. Great.
Oh,
Thanks.
no.
Oh no.
So I didn't sleep good last night either.
Oh, nosebleeds are the worst.
Luckily this time I woke up to the nosebleed and therefore managed to catch it rather than waking up in a pool of blood like has happened previously.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's bad.
That is pretty gross.
Yeah.
It's because you don't know that it's blood initially.
Yeah.
It feels like you've just dribbled, because that's just something that might happen. But then you're like, wait, this is It's a very weird, like, you can kind of tell because it stays at a certain temperature.
Oh.
Blood absorbs body heat in a different way from like water, basically.
Surely there's a slight consistency thing.
Well, and but that depends on how much you're moving around.
Oh, that's so gross.
Ugh.
I mean, I know I used to, like, when my gums were bad, I'd occasionally, like, bleed from my gum in the night, and it wouldn't really be a pool, particularly. Not like a nosebleed bad.
You wouldn't get nearly as much blood out that way.
No, you just sort of notice there's an odd patch on your pillow, and you're just like, that's not good. Or you might have like a little vampire streak down the side of your mouth. I'm just imagining you waking up looking a little bit like the Andrew WK album cover, where he's basically just got a runny nose. Just
Yeah.
And then, of course, even once I'd like been woken up by that at like 6, and then stifled it, and it was like, well, now I have to sleep on my back because otherwise it risks starting up again. So, and that's like the one position that I don't sleep in, which makes it not actually really possible to sleep on my back. So I still didn't sleep good afterwards.
Well, that blows. There's nothing like bad sleep, really, is it? It's like, it's one thing when you're like intentionally trying not to sleep. I got other things to do. I want to stay awake. That's fine. But it's like when you're actually trying to, like, that's probably, you shouldn't actively try to sleep. and that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah, but when you know you have to get up and it's like you need sleep but you can't actively sleep, it's like so annoying.
If it's any consolation, Zach, my stomach is putting up a bit of a fight, but not for my usual random reasons. Oh no, this one is excess. I've eaten quite a lot in the last couple of days. And I'm paying for it right now.
You've been living it up.
A little bit. Yeah, we've had friends from Oxford down, and it's been
oh, nice.
Yeah. There's like it'll be like 10 in the morning, and there'll be like beer, and only half, unironically, or ironically, or whichever way around you want it, half unironically or ironically are kind of the same thing. But it'll be like beer. It's like, well, yeah, I guess we could. so we sort of ended up spending all day yesterday, like drinking, like not like a heavy session per se, just like a steady flow of booze all day. And with a steady flow of booze comes a steady flow of snacks. And
indeed.
And we actually went to the hot spot of Needham Market, the Rampant Horse.
Wow, seems to be the place to be in Needham these days.
I didn't actually go inside, like I wasn't the bar stooge, but we did sit in the mysterious outer part that now exists, and had a chicken burger because I'd had a beef burger earlier in the day, and that was the most.
All right, you got to in the same day. Oh, got to mix it up slightly. Change the meat.
Yeah, I had an all car barn burger earlier in the day, so it's like, wow, I only really fancy a burger on this menu this evening, so there's not much here for me. So I thought I'd have the chicken instead.
Sounds like a good day. I guess you're paying for it though.
Oh yeah, as I said, I probably didn't need that full chicken burger meal. Like we ordered a plate of nachos basically as well, like for the table, and it's like, oh, they actually do mean it. Like a plate of nachos it looked like a lasagna when it came out. It was like chili nachos, right? So a layer of nachos,
right?
But then basically just had probably a 2-person portion of chili and a layer of cheese on top as well, and it was just
poured on top. Yeah,
just insane. Like, but it was delicious. But it's like if you ordered that as a side and then this came out, you're just like, what the whole hell?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was pretty good. And then just to top it all off, Gnome cooked a roast today, which is always delicious. But oh my gosh, I'm so full. I'm so full.
Mission accomplished for this weekend, then.
Yeah, it's a good. The timing of your illness is probably as good as it gets. Zach, it's like just a
because there wasn't going to be pizza tonight.
I mean, there could have been, but it would have been a smaller pizza idea because we were also because we weren't quite sure what we were going to do yesterday. The rampant horse was kind of a plan as we went kind of thing, and
play it by ear.
Yeah, so we have the kit for sort of like make your own pizza sort of stuff. So that's probably what would have happened. But they're smaller pizzas, Probably still what a supermarket would call a 2-person portion pizza, but still smaller than the Domino's. So anyway, my gut says hi. You might hear it later.
Oh. It's quite unlucky, Zach, to manage to. There's not many disease vectors into your.
No,
your
it's just
bubble, is there?
Naturally, there's just a child. Is the classic?
I don't even know. Have you
child.
got a niece or a nephew?
I mean, yeah, that's
one of them.
One of them. I'm not quite sure the gender of this child.
No,
but it definitely makes.
Definitely a boy.
Oh, it's a boy. Okay, a nephew. Okay.
But they come over most it's Wednesday appears to be the day for the grandparents, so they come over here.
So you already planning out how to disrupt this kid's future with video games?
Well, I mean, I've said several times, it's just like I'm not really interested in interacting with this child in any way until they're at least 3 years old. Because there's no fun until then. It's just effort up until then, really, isn't it?
I'm pretty certain that is true. It's oh boy. In fairness, my outlook on kids has kind of always been, it's like, okay, you just have to suck it up until they're 7. And and then they become interesting.
And then they're into Sonic the Hedgehog.
Exactly, yeah.
From then on.
Then they're a person.
But then, I literally might have been in the room with them for approximately 30 seconds when I was downstairs getting a tea, and yet that was enough. Although, apparently everyone just got ill, so apparently it was just the whole environment of this house just got fucked.
It's got environated. Oh, well. I suppose it's good to give your immune system a workout on occasion.
Yeah, just check that it still exists.
Yeah.
It's not like I ever get ill apart from this.
Yeah, because otherwise you're freaking, what's his name? The Spruce Goose. Howard Hughes. I only know that through the Simpsons parody. I don't know the actual story.
He never got ill? But,
No, he got paranoid of germs and, then
sealed himself up.
Yeah. And that's what that Mr. Burns parody is. I think that's the one where Mr. Burns has the casino, right? And he ends up wearing tissue boxes on his feet and stuff like that. Yeah.
Spruce Goose.
What's the actual plane called? The Spruce. It is the Spruce.
Yeah, it sounds right.
Goose.
I thought it was Spruce Goose, but unless that's also a parody name.
I think the Simpsons one had a parody name. It must have been Spruce Moose or something else. Right. Can't remember. Yeah. I can't be bothered to watch what's it called? The Aviator is right, the biopic with Leonardo DiCaprio of that guy. But I don't think I could be bothered to watch that.
No, I've not seen it. But... Talking films, though. I've got to talk about that Matrix trailer, yo.
Yeah. Oh, so this week I watched The Matrix Reloaded.
Oh, did you?
On the old Netflix.
The second one, the Mr. Stiff one. Mr. Smith brawl. Mr. Stiff.
Yeah, the Burley brawl.
Well, it's not. It's 50% fight, 50% talk, but very abrupt.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that's a pretty okay film. I mean, judging it by the standards of the original. But it's not as good. It's not as good, but it's got some fantastic scenes, and it's got some really good action, and even the dialogue is pretty good. There's some overwritten bits, obviously, but it's on purpose that the stupid programs like the Merovingian and the Architect sound really weird.
Say what you will about the Architect scene, but the plot is building throughout this. It's doing the trilogy thing, right? It's
decent. I still don't think The Matrix really needed a sequel because it kind of ended perfectly. No. But I mean, Reloaded is. I mean, it had to because it was so good and it was a cultural phenomenon. There was always going to be a sequel. And I feel like Reloaded is pretty okay and quite a fun time. Quite reasonably well paced. Really good action. Some good character stuff as well. And considering they'd ended the first one with the main character becoming God, they dealt with it relatively well.
Yeah. He's only all powerful. It was convenient in that he could be powerful within the construct, right, and within the rules of the construct, and that let them play with it a bit. And
so they just semi retcon some stuff. At the end of the first film, he could clearly do way more. It's sort of implied he could do way more direct manipulation, but it turns out it's just stopping bullets.
Just that.
Yeah.
Just some TK action. That's about it.
There's definitely a few retcons in there, but that's kind of necessary, isn't it? I'm wondering, are there any retcons in The Empire Strikes Back? I think there must be a couple.
I don't know.
Anyway.
No, well, I mean, even in they conveniently made sure not to kill Darth Vader, which was a very good on their part, I guess.
That was the one thing, but I feel like that's because it was like an adventure serial thing. It was meant to be a homage to the 1930s kind of sci-fi stuff, right?
Star Wars kind of a bit strange anyway because it starts with Episode 4, and even they knew it was. They didn't know it wasn't. If you saw it in 1977, it didn't say. They didn't put that on.
Said,
okay.
No, it didn't say A New Hope or anything. It just said Star Wars originally. Yeah, they added that later.
I sort of vaguely thought that he'd just written all this fan fiction books behind the scenes, well, not even fan. He's just written these things and just thought, you know what, we'll just start here and we'll label it because it sounds epic. And
no, he wasn't like Tolkien where he had everything thought out ahead of time. He'd been working for years. He was just some random director guy. It wasn't long before they started filming it that C-3PO was like a used car salesman character or whatever, and Han Solo was like a lizard. It really came together at the last minute. I think it even came together in the edit, apparently. Star Wars after they'd even filmed it.
The rare time where that does happen.
Yeah, exactly. But The Matrix.
I was sort of thinking about this earlier today, in a weird way, because The Matrix is one of those ones where it had the breakout hit single film, and then as soon as that happened, they were like, "Well, we'll make this a trilogy." So you end up with the slightly odd trilogy structure, where it's the first film stands up and is entirely on its own. The second film only exists to lead to the third.
To the third one, yeah.
And it's while they're enjoyable in their own right, then you can't really stop there. It's you can't just watch the second on its own. It's not a thing, and it's there's plenty of trilogies where that's happened, and it's Pirates of the Caribbean is the other obvious one, right? Where it's the first film stands on its own pretty well, and then you've got the messy second entry, which is a lot of fun in terms of the scenes and stuff. But boy, there's a lot of threads coming that they then don't really tie together very well in the third. They went too big.
Well, that's like The Matrix, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's the thing. The Matrix doesn't actually have all that many threads, really.
I suppose that's true. It's just that the way they tie them up in the third one is just a bit disappointing to a lot of people.
It's a little odd.
Yeah. That's the thing I'm planning. I probably can't be bothered to watch Revolutions again. I don't know. But Reloaded was fun.
I guess the third one is the one I remember the least, really.
Oh, definitely.
Even in terms of the sequences and things like that, they're just not as memorable in the third film.
What action scenes can you remember from?
There was
other than the attack on Zion or whatever.
Yeah, there was a fancy lobby scene, not lobby and with pillars there was in the first film, but it was one of those. It was a fight where there's two curved staircases in this sort of mansion-y sort of entrance place.
No, that's in Reloaded.
That's in Reloaded. Oh, balls. Well, in which case, I don't know. Other than the big Smith fight at the end, I'm a bit lost.
Yeah. So, yeah. I do, and I also I always liked in the original Matrix, but and of course it's of its time as well. But I really like that. I always like that in the Matrix, there's these physical analogs to all the digital stuff. Like they have to get to a hard line, which is hilarious in now because the hard line. Imagine if you're trying to leave the Matrix now. Where are you going to find a landline?
Well, most houses still have
England.
Yeah,
America.
Most houses still have landlines, but the phone booths aren't really a thing, are they?
No, or the phone booths. But and there's various things like that. But in Reloaded, they have the key maker. I like that. The kind of the keys and the tumblers being a kind of physical version of encryption or whatever, and the way that they could open the doors to different places using different codes that are physically manifested in physical keys. I thought that was cool.
I forget, wasn't the thing in they did the way they did dead drops in the Matrix was they were basically VHS tapes or something. And that was that wasn't in the films. I think that was in the Flight of the Osiris animated thing that I think the Square Enix animation team did. Yeah,
right.
Soon after they did that Final Fantasy film.
I mean, they do very briefly and kind of inexplicably show it in the third film, where there's those two dudes trying to get the message from the Oracle out to Neo, where they're just like, "Oh, you've got to take this and go and pick up the phone, and then somehow that will transfer this data out to the real world." I guess.
Yeah, because there was something. It did. The Flight of the Osiris was actually tied in somehow to the third film. Yeah, so that maybe that was it. Maybe that was the tie.
Some people find that unreasonably annoying, where then the guys come to the Neo's door in the real world and hand him a computer chip, and he's like, "Oh, it must be the message from the Oracle." And it's like, yeah, but it's not literal. It didn't literally create this physical object in the real world when they came out of the Matrix. It's just data that they've copied onto this disk.
Because then that's I just watched Reloaded, and I'd actually forgotten the main twist, which is the fact that it's a cycle and it's happened 5 times before or whatever. And that's quite good. But then there's an additional thing where Neo gains powers in the real world, right? Over machines. And it's like,
and that's the cliffhanger. That's the cliffhanger ending. And it's like, well, what is that even about?
Yeah.
Well, it's because he's connected to the source and therefore can wirelessly transmit back up through the whole machine system.
Through his brain somehow. Through his brain. Yeah.
But they explain that slightly, because at the start of the third film, he gets separated, right? His brain remains in this weird, limbo connection to the Matrix.
Yeah, he's in
for a while.
Weird once he used that power to stop that Sentinel, it was a bit. His body was just not in control anymore, right? And he was just lost.
It's just some weird wireless connection that can helpfully connect directly to the human brain.
Maybe there's just something about his maybe it's a way the robots put it there to keep tabs on him a little bit, the little plugs they put in their brains or something, and say, well, this one's got a little extra Wi-Fi bit that no one noticed. But anyway,
so
that trailer looks neat, in the sense that
I think it looked interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I'm not sure I expected them to do a full retread in the way that they're doing. I sort of vaguely expected them to perhaps not bring back Keanu, maybe, and only go for actually do a full retread. This is Neo 2 or something, someone else,
right.
Or 7 or whatever.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
This is a prequel. Who knows?
After the original trilogy, something did change, and they did something to the Matrix, and now it's a different environment and. A new set of people are now breaking out of it or whatever.
I think that's going to be probably the hardest bit to explain, because from what they've shown in that trailer, it definitely looks like it's leaning towards a more modern setting. But the whole point of the Matrix was the world ended at 1999 essentially. There is no modern world for the machines to have pulled that information from to create that version of the Matrix in that version of the story.
That's a very good point, but I don't know if I Yeah, I don't know. Well, did it? No, it didn't end in 1999.
Well, no, the one
1999 was
in 1999.
That's
when it started going down.
Yeah, that's when the robots thought was man's.
But there certainly wouldn't have
peak.
been regular modern world, right? After they
the story
created the AI, right?
It goes on for quite a long time. Like, you know, those robots with flying cars and home help and stuff like that. Like, it's quite a long time before the Matrix becomes and the robots rise up, basically.
Also, the other problem they have is like the timeline doesn't actually make sense, but that's because no one actually knows what the date is.
No, that's very much an unknown. Yeah,
because Morpheus claims it's like 2199, which is obviously not long enough for there to have even been like six iterations of Neo in the Matrix or whatever.
Well, because if they knew the date, they knew that they'd been 6 iterations, right? So they.
But we don't. Well, we don't know if it's like.
Tell them that.
We don't 100% know if it's 6 iterations of the same Neo, right? So, like, the same physical person goes back in, like, for some reason they rape him or whatever.
It's not the same person.
I would assume that, like,
but that's never been 100% clear.
Like 6 iterations of, like, a person that they still have to, like, be not a child at some point. Yeah. They probably have to exist for, like, at least 5 years before they can even do anything.
Yeah, I don't know if they've ever explored that. Like, what happens to? Because presumably they have to farm the humans somehow, and it's like, okay, what do they do with the kids before they're?
But the cycle must be like 100 years or something, right? Because then Morpheus is talking about 100 years, like we fought the machines.
But no one really knows that. I mean, the one thing that does that on that side that doesn't match up as well is like how long has Zion existed? Because presumably people there must know how long, approximately, by like even just how many generations have lived in there.
Well, it gets destroyed each time, right?
Well, so sure, but even then you'd be like, oh, well, if it's been 100 years, it must have been about 3 generations, right?
Yeah. That's true.
And you have old people in Zion, relatively old, probably like 70, longest person you see in the film.
But we've never. Yeah. I thought they sort of make a deal like that. The people that are not pod-born are quite young.
No, I don't think they ever showed enough people for that to be sure either way.
Sure, okay. I guess the ones we meet tend to be quite young. I guess the ones without plugs.
Tank is like 30s, right? Is he? I don't know. Maybe he's younger.
I don't know. Yeah, I judged him as sort of early 20s or something like that.
Is Dozer also not plugged? I think he is, right? He's older,
brothers, right?
Yeah. Maybe. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Dozer doesn't go into the Matrix, right? He stays on the ship.
That doesn't really do anything apart from just die.
Yeah, he dies.
He watches them, occasionally gives them an instruction about where a hard line is, and then gets moided.
Old tank stuff.
And then
spare a thought for poor old Mouse, who dies immediately.
I didn't realise that Link's wife or whatever, I can't remember her character, Z or something, was meant to be played by Aaliyah, and they had to reshoot all of her scenes, of course, when she died.
Right, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just waiting to see like what is the explanation of like why was Neo put back in for starters? It's like because I guess we don't know what happened after. That's the whole thing, isn't it? It's like what happened to him. And
well, if we're assuming that this definitely happens afterwards, I don't think that he necessarily even has to be real. Like they kind of hint at it with the way like Trinity and his reflection in the mirror occasionally show like Matrix glitchy effects. It's like they might not actually be people.
Interesting, right? Yeah, so they are now programmed,
especially Trinity. Yeah.
So we could be in a whole new iteration.
Maybe they created the new Matrix.
Oh my goodness! But they've forgotten
or influenced it somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm hoping for something juicy like that. That it's not just that simple.
You're hoping that it's going to make sense, essentially.
In a weird way, I'm almost hoping not that it is just something absolutely Hideo Kojima batshit.
Well, I mean, it makes sense in like even if it is bullshit, it at least follows. Like it doesn't have to be logical exactly.
Yeah, well, yeah,
definitely. Some explanation.
At the very least, that it fits, that it doesn't break the original trilogy, right? That's That's all anyone can really hope for from new films, right? That they just they don't sully what's come before.
I mean, that's why I'm like, maybe it's a prequel, because that would helpfully avoid that.
Oh, what? This is
one of the earlier iterations,
but it just happened to Neo later, I guess. Yeah, because they expect. Yeah, I guess there is that, isn't there? There is that bit of canon where they experimented. The robots experimented for quite a period of time.
Yeah, because the original Matrix was like a paradise and it didn't work.
Yeah, it fell apart.
So maybe they went progressively back in time in terms of technology to make it shitter for people, so they accepted it.
Maybe. But then they call it Resurrections.
Yeah, that's
it's not a prequel. Yeah, we shall see.
I'm excited.
But, yeah, I mean, I'm much more intrigued than I thought. I would just wrote it off as it was bound to be bad, but it looks like it could be okay.
The problem is that it's just going to be modern CG guff. It's just like it's going to look hella generic. That's my main problem.
You're not wrong. You do kind of want them to actually remember what made the original Matrix special, and that it was the practicality of what they had to do to achieve those effects then, and that's what gives it its look. It's if they over CG it, like in fairness, like they did with Reloaded and onwards. Yeah. It's like it lost something. It lost a bit of visual.
Yeah. I still like just that there's a really early on fight in Reloaded where he fights who is he? Just some bloke who's like some kind of a guardian for the Oracle, and he just fights him on the tables.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's just a basic. It's like a 5-minute martial arts fight. It's like that's quite good. He's like, you don't truly know someone until you fight them. It's like, yeah, all right, mate. Could have just asked.
I think that is quite a martial arty thing to say, isn't it?
Yeah.
It would have made more sense if his character had something to do with like fight programming, but I don't think he does. I think he's just like he's called like Seraph or something, right? He's just like an angel essentially, a guardian angel for whatever.
Right.
Good call on the good recall on the name there. Yeah.
I think I've seen this film quite recently as well, or parts of it at least.
See, I don't know that I have. Like, when did we? Because I think the last time I watched these three films were when we all watched them. Like when I first got the HD DVD or Blu-ray set or whatever. It's
all right. That's a while ago.
Yeah. Maybe it's time.
I can't remember the last time I've seen Revolutions. Like, I don't know if I could be bothered.
I feel like I can. I think maybe it's time. Maybe rewatch them all before fourth comes out.
Well, it's the classic plan.
The only problem is like I've only got a DVD copy of Animatrix, and Animatrix is really good. It's it'd be nice to have a crisper version of that.
They even release a crisper version of that.
Yeah, I don't think it ever came out anywhere other than like physical versions. Like, yeah, I don't know that there's a Blu-ray version of it, which is a shame. It was a neat idea. I feel like there should be. It was one of the more successful like spin-off ideas. Like Matrix had a lot of spin-offs, let's be frank, but it's and most of them weren't great. But that the games,
yeah.
There was
Online.
Matrix Online and whatever they will Enter the Matrix,
Enter the Matrix, yeah,
which was all right, and did try and tie the story in, but they weren't hugely successful. But yeah, no, the Animatrix was good. Like, I want like a bit of me was about to say like I wish more decent sci-fi franchises tried something that bonkers and just out there and had more of these. And it's like, well, they do most, like a lot of them, like video games are terrible at that, right? With like spin-off series and little cartoons that try and go alongside things, and they're almost universally terrible. Like I don't want to, like the Final Fantasy 15 problem, where it's like you have to watch an awful film to get the backstory for a game so you understand the game. You have to wait, and I didn't watch Kingsglaive, but there was an awful lot of like world building done in that before the game begins, and it's like,
yeah,
it's not the way to do it.
No, not at all ideal.
Trust Square to get it wrong.
It would be interesting if they got Kojima to be a script consultant on a Matrix film.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine? That would be insane.
I know Hideo's wedded to games, but there is a part of me that just wants him to like, just make a film. Please just make a film.
Yeah.
I want to see how nuts it is. Or how you can, more to the point, how do you condense your brand of nuts into a film? Like, because maybe like that's where the gold lies with him. It's like if you need to edit this down to about 2 hours.
Yeah. Yeah, get some really skilled editors in to try and condense the madness.
Oh boy, I'm sure that'll be a challenge. We'll just have him write an anime, I don't know.
Yeah.
And get Norman Reedus in it.
I see they're doing a Star Wars, like, give a bunch of anime studios, the chance to do some Star Wars stories. A bit like an Animatrix, but for Star Wars, kind of. All that's going to come to Disney Plus. Yeah, it could be interesting. I don't know why they need to do that, but I guess it could be fun.
I mean, Star Wars is the obvious one for doing the whole spin-off thing, right? In every possible direction, many times over. And would I be right in saying that it is definitely more hit than miss, even in Star Wars land, right? Even with the volume they have.
I mean, there's quite a few misses, but
yeah.
I mean, even that original Clone Wars cartoon that was the
so good
Samurai Jack one.
So good.
That was a hit, wasn't it?
Well, I don't know about like commercial hit, but like critical, like as a good thing to watch. Hell yeah.
That's now labelled with the kind of
the legacy
they've got a label.
Thing.
I noticed legacy, yeah, or something vintage, all the non-canon stuff. So you can watch the 1980s Ewok cartoons if you want.
Man, I really wish that sort of thumper robot that Mace Windu fought in that cartoon was a real thing. Like, that was badass. Anyway.
Films. Yeah. Still can't wait for Dune. Not long now.
Yeah. And apparently we probably have to go see Shang-Chi.
Oh.
The world is sort of like blowing up about that thing right now.
Really? Well, that's what I thought about The Matrix Reloaded. It's like it's just better than your average Marvel film. Put it that way.
Yeah. But then Shang-Chi is a Marvel film that is supposedly better than your average Marvel film.
Well, let's hope so. Yeah, you have to report back on that one.
Yeah.
I watched Black Widow. I wasn't impressed, so hopefully this will be better.
Yeah,
it's got Awkwafina. That's the main thing. I like her.
See, I'm just in a sort of a general, just like the feeling that I just cannot be asked with the cinema, and yet there's like suddenly there's 3 films that I feel like are probably going to be good cinema watchers, and it's like, yeah, but the cinema though. It's like this is what lockdown has done to me, being like a Cineworld pass holder to being like, yeah, but cinema though.
Where do you go now?
It's probably the same place. It'd probably have to be the Cineworld in Ipswich, or I guess now I'm not a pass holder. I could go to the Empire that's there now. That's in the middle of town. Apparently, is quite nice. Not as big screens, but like because it's like just fresher build, it might be just a bit nicer.
That's the one at the Buttermarket.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, right, interesting. Did they rebuild the centre of the Buttermarket to add that cinema?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
It's been knocked around a bit.
I was looking a bit sad in there for a while.
I mean, it's still a little sad. But it makes it now because it's become basically the new restaurant area.
Right, it's a Byron Burger.
Yeah, the Byron's and a Prezzo and like a dessert house of some description. And a Wagamama.
A wagamama.
A wagamama.
Wagamama.
Or wagamama.
Right.
News.
Yeah, switching from movies to video games. What's going on in the world of video games this week / the week before?
Week before mainly is where the news was at, because PlayStation did a showcasey thing. We haven't had one of those for a while. 'Cause I'm not sure they really had a thing for E3 this year, did they? They sort of they had that Horizon Forbidden West dive, and that was kind of it. So better late than never, but we've got a thing. And they were trying to bring their AAA game here. So here we go. Got things of note. There's quite a few here that I've noted down. So this isn't the full list, but our normal style. This is what caught my wandering eye. This is Knights of the Old Republic, not the MMO. Whatever that's called. It's just called Knights of the Old Republic, isn't it? Like that thing? The Old Republic. Yeah, not the Knights of bit, but the older BioWare original Xbox RPG is getting a full-on remake, courtesy of Aspire Studios.
People have been asking for this for years. It's one of those, not quite to the extent of Final Fantasy VII, but I mean that happened. So
yeah, but it's interesting because it's not a BioWare gig for starters, and which is weird. And I'm not even sure EA are involved. Like I
don't think they are.
I don't know what the situation is here. It's a bit strange.
Well, is this because this is similar because the Star Wars license was exclusive to EA, and then
it was, and that's now
Disney
lapsed.
Took it back, right?
Yeah,
lapsed that, and they formed Lucas Games or something, or Lucasfilm Games or something. Not LucasArts, which was the original Lucasfilm Games, which was fully a Lucas company, wasn't it? Alongside the likes of ILM and Skywalker Sound and all that stuff. Anyway, LucasArts is dead, right? Yeah. So this is the replacement under Disney. Yeah. So and then Aspire, I guess they at least what they've done is do the modern ports of KOTOR to iPad and stuff.
Yeah, they did that. Yeah, they did that many years ago now. More recently, they were behind the Episode 1 Racer port to the Switch.
Yeah.
And or re-release of that.
I forgot that happened.
And also, was it the Jedi Knight 2? I think that came to Switch as well.
Jedi Outcast. Classic.
So, yeah, something like that. I think they did that work as well. They're a studio that's basically well known for port jobs. So,
with a pedigree with specifically the good Star Wars.
Star Wars games, yeah. They seem to have a pretty decent. Although I think they were also involved in that re-release of Republic Commando recently as well.
Yeah, another good one.
Another good one, yeah. So that they know their way around Star Wars theoretically. But these are, as I say, they're all port jobs. This might be the first time they've been given is remake actually the right term here? It's they might be ground up making a new graphics engine and stuff like that maybe for it, but what actually is it?
You kind of need to redo the combat though in the Final Fantasy VII style, because that original combat would not stand up to modern scrutiny. Right. It was quite weird. It was it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons rules, but it was made to look real time in a really weird way. And it's something that they immediately moved away from with Mass Effect, and then obviously Mass Effect 2 it became a full-on third-person shooter.
Well, they actually moved away almost from the sort of RPG structure entirely before that, right? Because Jade Empire came after.
Jade Empire,
and that was more of an action game, right? More of an action RPG.
Yeah, that was probably their first attempt to just move away from that style. So KOTOR is a weird one where it's in between. Imagine it as in between Mass Effect and Neverwinter Nights, you know, or something like or Baldur's Gate, like it's like a 3D, you know, Star Wars adventure, but with one foot still in like Baldur's Gate kind of Dungeons and Dragons, basically.
Yeah, it's a transitional period for BioWare for sure, wasn't it? That whole era until they landed.
And it's cool. I mean,
Mass Effect.
Yeah, it's a great game. Like you know, and it did work. Like, but they can't do that now, so they have to think of something else for the combat. But I mean, Final Fantasy VII, I thought did a great job of changing the combat.
Yeah, we still have to get cracking on that at some point, Zach. It's like I'm getting, for some reason, like all this talk recently about Final Fantasy 7 Integrate on PS5, and like this year, like having brought that back into a little bit of focus. Like people that never played it before have been playing it again, and yeah, it's got me like a bit hyped. Like we should check that thing out, man. Whether we do it as a video or not, I don't care. But like we should play that game.
That would be awesome if you guys did a video series like you did for the original. So yeah, compare.
We'll have to come up with a capture solution for that though, because it's
yeah, that's true.
I've only got the PS4 version, so it's having not got a PS5 like most people on the planet, and yeah, I don't really have a capture solution for that.
Indeed.
But it's just I don't know. It's a game I want to play in hourly chunks though. That's always been my sort of problem with it. I sort of want to experience it in a nice lengthy buttload.
Well, I think at least in the remake's case, every hour is likely to be actually content.
Yeah, true. No, not so much grind.
No,
that is true. Also, they have sort of pretty much, you know, reminded everyone that news, I suppose, not really in the PlayStation Showcase. They've reminded everyone that like the Part 2 is coming. Like,
okay,
it's on the way.
So yeah, KOTOR. I mean, that was a good game. The main thing was it had a decent story for a video game. Like it had a better story than the Star Wars prequels that were being released at the time. So, so people remember it quite fondly.
Do you reckon it will get the Final Fantasy VII remake treatment and be split up?
It could be. I mean, it was long. It was like a 40-hour game, the original one. I say long. I don't know. It's probably not that long for an RPG these days. I don't know.
I'd still say a 40-hour game is pretty long. You know, it's probably 40 to 50 hours was how much time I ended up putting into Horizon in the end, and I thought that was long. Yeah. But that was because it outstayed its welcome. But
yeah. Is KOTOR canon? No. Oh no. I guess not.
No, it can't
Revan, be. They get. Oh, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
It must be in the legacy pile, right?
Yeah. It's weird because it's like set so many thousands of years before. It doesn't necessarily matter, but I think it actually does because it has some stuff about lore about like the origins of basically humanoid species across the galaxy. You know, one of those, like, it has a Forerunner race, I seem to remember. It introduces like a Forerunner race for Star Wars.
Oh no.
Yeah. Classic.
It's not canon then. I don't think they'd want that.
No.
So anyway, there was that. That was near the start. We also got to see Project Eve, which, you know, not a great name, but it seems to be a bit of a sort of Devil May Cry, Bayonetta character action style game, which always gets me a little interested. I like those, except Devil May Cry. At least the Capcom Devil May Cries. It's like DMC was good. That's my fave. And Bayonetta is always class. So this had a bit of that, probably more of a Bayonetta vibe, but it's like it's a bit more sort of what if Bayonetta and Nier Automata got together. Because it's got that sort of like it's a post-apocalyptic vibe going on. Like she might not be a human, she might be an android kind of thing, dropped onto Earth and no one's about, and there's this some sort of like virusy thing, that's like resurrecting corpses to come fight you and things like that. And it's probably very Japanese and thus probably quite entertaining. General rule.
Let's hope so.
We also then got another, what I would say, a classic Borderlands trailer for Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, which, we actually got to see some gameplay this time, which we hadn't done before. And it looks a whole lot like Borderlands. It's just you're now probably fighting more creatures rather than dudes in masks. But they're still guns. They're just fantasy guns now. And I think you can use your left hand to do spells, a bit like The Witcher or Bioshock-y type thing. So it's Bioshockerland. Yeah. I don't know. I still don't really know if I will ever be back in for Borderlands. Like I never finished Borderlands 2. I was kind of sated. Right. And then Borderlands 3 has happened as well since then, and the pre-sequel game has happened since then. And it's just like, I'm not sure this is enough, because it's still got that art style, right? It's still very much
it's the same look,
Yeah. I think I need more from a game than what Borderlands had to offer in terms of its combat. Like, not sure. Also Gearbox, Just generally, Next, we had a bit more of a look at Forspoken, which is a Square Enix's sort of not Final Fantasy looking project. Sort of expanding a little bit on the whole, like the girl brought out of time kind of aspect of it. It's like a modern day girl is brought into this fantasy world where she has powers for some reason. So the tone is a little strange. It's like if you listen to like the dialogue and things like that, because she's like being like, this is so freaking cool, like, and all that sort of modern young personisms, but in a fantasy game, which may work or may probably drive me up the wall. I'm not sure.
Sounds potentially annoying.
Yeah. But it showed like there's, combat and traversal, and it moves at a fair old pace and does look quite pretty, has to be said, as you might expect of a Square game, I suppose. Yeah, we'll see. I still don't really know. I guess we still don't, like, even though that thing's now been given the date of spring 2022, I'm not sure I get a feel for what that might be. Like, maybe it's like Final Fantasy 15, but they've taken the combat elements of that and run with that and made that more of the focus than the sort of RPG elements of that game. That I wouldn't be surprised about at all if it's a sort of continuation of that theme. Everyone's favourite game about a writer, Alan Wake, is getting remastered.
I am
Alan Wake. Right, Alan. How's it going? Alan. Yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like, it's one of those games where it feels like everyone's been sort of like quietly appreciating, but like realizing at the same time it was never the perfect game, and it's like it just does strike me as a little strange that they're going back to it in some way. It's like, yeah, I know everything's getting remastered, yada yada yada, but like, I don't know if this was big enough of a hit to really come back. It's kind of a cult classic in a way, but
yeah, I don't know. It's just like Max Payne, great, and then they're like, we're going to do Twin Peaks, but video game. Okay, and then I remember being excited like for all the previews of it and stuff, and there was a lot of hype leading up to it. I think and Remedy, the graphics were, Max Payne were pretty cool. So it looked like it was going to be awesome, but then it was kind of a whimper in some ways. Yeah,
I think that was always the thing. The actual gameplay element of it was what let it down. Like, it's not not the writing, it's not the setting, it's the sort of flashlight.
Yeah, exactly.
Stun him with a flashlight, pistol the dude. That's all you do.
Yeah.
That's the game.
That's never going to be as fun as Max Payne's jumping sideways bullet time.
Yeah. I guess the only tricky thing about Alan Wake was remember to get your Energizer batteries and so you've got enough batteries for your incredibly thirsty torch.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I've heard they've debranded the batteries in this remaster.
Oh, were they like Duracell? Were they?
They were specifically Energizers.
Energizers, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They go one for the brand action category. It's like they debranded this.
It's always such a weird. Any game that has like flashlight based scarcity mechanics is just weird. Like the Doom, of course, famously.
Sure.
The duct tape mod, Doom 3, and like Half-Life 2. Like if you sprint, you can't use your flashlight.
It drains your flashlight power.
Suit battery. It's like, come on, how high powered is this light in this futuristic suit?
if your suit can recharge, like I don't know, I can't remember. Could it recharge in Half-Life 2? Did your suit power? Your suit power recharge.
Yeah,
right?
I don't think you needed to use.
So if it can recharge like whatever power it was using to make you sprint faster, which would presumably be quite a lot, it can run a little LED.
It can run a bloody flashlight. Yeah,
bit mad. It's like even games. I mean, it's probably slightly more believable in games like Outlast, where you're like holding up a night vision camera as your sort of flashlight alternative. It's like, okay, that might actually drain quite quickly.
Maybe, but I'm sure like that's not something they're massively worried about, like a special forces on night ops having their their head mounted vision systems
I suppose
batteries.
Yeah, I guess they probably got quite chunky ass batteries in them though. Like this was like
I think so.
Like a handheld like camcorder that just happened to have a night vision mode.
Right, yeah. It makes more sense.
Anyway, Alan Wake remastered. Then we got to see a bit of Ghostwire Tokyo, which I still think looks kind of cool. Like in that it's like it's a game that's been doing the rounds for a while. I think we saw it like early on in the PS5's like discussion history, maybe even earlier than that. As I saw kind of a horror game, but kind of not. Like it's got horror elements, like Japanese folklore, ghosts, and imagery of that sort. The sort of like, don't we call them a little bit like doilies, like with like a face on them, and like they feature and like cloth doilies with crossed eyes, faces. Some typical sort of some ghoulies and things like that, but I'm not quite sure. Like it seems to be like just a first-person combat game of some description. Like whenever you see these encounters in this thing, it's the imagery has always looked nice to me, but it's the way it plays that seems to or the way it looks like it might play that seems to perhaps be a frustrating time. It's hard to tell. And again, this new trailer didn't really do much to expand on that. It's just like, yeah, it looks pretty much the same. But it's good to know that it's still around, I guess. It hasn't been totally killed. Then we got a sort of little montage of pictures, it seems, to announce Kid A Amnesia, or Kid A Amnesia, which is Radiohead cross Epic Games doing something. Which, before the show, Zach probably correctly predicted is a Fortnite thing. Although that might seem a little strange for like Radiohead to bring their specific brand of gloom to Fortnite.
Yeah, it's not something that's the kids are down with these days, is it? Radiohead seems like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's not exactly Billie Eilish, is it? When was their last album? Wasn't it like a Moon-Shaped Pool? It was a little while ago.
I really don't know. I'll be honest with you. I'm probably one of the heathens of music that have never really followed them that closely. It's
Yeah. I know people who are like obsessed with them and think they're the best thing ever, but I never I can appreciate a Radiohead album. But
oh yeah, there's some great stuff. Don't get me wrong, but it's not I've followed the trajectory of their career with
no
to get hype for every little thing they've done.
Certainly not. But they have innovated with digital releasing and stuff over the years. They're quite early for the whole pay what you want with digital distribution type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
It's kind of pre-Spotify.
Yeah, totally. So probably in character for them to do some kind of Fortnite-based thing. But the fact that it's called Kid Amnesia or whatever implies that they're old albums, Kid A and Amnesia, aren't they? So it's not a new album. Kid A came out in 2000.
Yeah.
That's a while ago.
Okay, computer.
That's even earlier.
Yeah.
It's 97 or something. Yeah.
Anyway, so there's that. We don't know what that is yet. It's just a thing. Uncharted is getting a little bit of love in a upcoming PS5 patch that will improve Uncharted 4 and Uncharted Lost Legacy. But then, in addition to that, those same improvements are also coming to a PC release of the game. So this is Sony's carrying on with their current trend of putting out some of their biggest titles on PC. A ways after the fact, admittedly, but they're still doing it.
Well, that's kind of cool. I mean, so what
it's great
games are on the PC right now? And can you play Uncharted 2 on PC? I don't think so.
You can through PlayStation 3 emulation.
Right. Yeah.
It is possible. PlayStation 3 emulation is coming along now, so it's if you've got a grunty ass machine, it's probably doable now. But it might not be the recommended way to do it. And PS4 emulation has begun. That's now surfacing.
That's got to be easier because it's like an x86.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It depends. Yeah, it depends.
Cell stuff. Yeah.
The tricky bit with those is always going to be manipulating how to translate the graphics architecture. But more likely the APIs for how the graphics architecture does what it does, and you having enough of a graphics card to then do that map and do the graphics. But yeah, it's beginning. It's stuff is surfacing on PS4 front, and then I guess if you had that, then you could do the Nathan Drake collection. And Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy. You could do the lot if PS4 emulation gets there.
I presume Uncharted 4 was at 30 frames per second, right? PS4 must have been, yeah. So it'd be nice to see that in. It's an amazing looking game. It'd be nice to see that in 60 and higher, I guess.
Yeah, I've never gone back to the Nathan Drake collection because all of the first 3 games were all PS3 games, and it's they've been 60 FPS up in that re-release. Right, yeah. But they were I guess what you generally call a sort of fairly low effort remaster, right? They're sort of almost like an HD edition where it's they're a bit more HDified, and it's what else do we do? I don't know, slap more frames on it because we've got power to spare, rather than do much to actually rework the assets. Similar to Last of Us remastered, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. What other Sony stuff would you want for them to bring? I guess Spider-Man's a bit of an ask.
Yeah, probably not just yet, but.
And I wonder, they'll probably keep some stuff to themselves, but Uncharted's a bit of a strange one, right? I guess you kind of. I wonder if they're taking the opinion that it's people that might want to play those games and have a PC. They're PC gamers that, they probably turn their noses up at consoles a little bit, so they're probably not going to buy a console. Maybe there's some a story behind that somewhere that they're now just leaning into. So maybe we'll get some God of Wars. I don't know.
Yeah, Yeah, that would be a thing.
That will be a thing. Anywho, Gran Turismo. Let's get a Gran Turismo in there. Well, they probably won't be able to do that because of the whole car licensing thing, stopping you from being able to sell old games. Because that thing we mentioned a few weeks back like Forza Motorsport 7 is now unbuyable.
You can't buy it, yeah. Okay.
Because all the licensing has lapsed.
And there's no
Forza Motorsport game you can buy now. Unless you go and buy a physical edition. Then you're okay.
That's weird.
Yeah, so it's an odd position to be in, isn't it? I guess it was never really a problem back in the day before digital stores, right? It's just like the discs are discs. It's like you want it, you go get it. And it's like, but now it's an odd one to not be able to get a disc, not be able to get a digital one.
A digital copy of it, yeah. Weird.
So then Insomniac, speaking of Spider-Man a second ago, Insomniac Games are working on a Wolverine game. Because I guess Marvel were happy with Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And they're currently seemingly just blurting money into games left, right and centre at the moment, Marvel, so...
What's going to happen with the Wolverine character then? So they've got, the X-Men films were like some of the first superhero films in the big wave. Post the original Superman films, right? It was like Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, and then when was X-Men?
Daredevil
like
even before that.
Yeah, Blade and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like the modern superhero film, like it probably started with the Spider-Man and X-Men, I would say. And you've got Hugh Jackman as Wolverine straight up, and they used him through, and he's that worked, and then they ended it with the what's it called?
Logan.
Logan, yeah, which was like the sort of gritty ending,
which was a great film, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, that was good. It was definitely good. And that was all, licensed by, 20th Century Fox, something like that. And so
yeah, it was under the
Spider-Man,
Fox agreement, wasn't it? Yeah, which is still a little funny. But Fox is now owned by Disney, who now owns Marvel, so that shouldn't be a problem anymore.
Yeah. So now there's the potential to introduce, like, Wolverine could be in the MCU ultimately, but I don't know if they don't seem to have plans, or maybe they do, but it's not part of this phase as far as we know.
No.
But like, do they do the whole X-Men, and then in terms of games, it's like, yeah, I suppose it makes sense because you've got Marvel Spider-Man, like that was a success, the Insomniac game. Is nothing to do with the MCU and nothing to do with the Sony Spider-Man, right? Which is the kind of hybrid,
No,
Tom Holland Spider-Man is half Sony, half MCU, isn't it?
Yeah, it's to do with absolutely... Yeah, the Spider-Man is its own... Video game is its own thing completely.
Yeah, so that's what you can do. Presumably that's the idea. They were like, well...
But it seems to be like Marvel's strategy with every single one of the games they're making right now, right? What was the Guardians of the Galaxy game that Square are making, and the Avengers game that Square already made? It's like, this is a... I don't even know if they're trying to make this like, this is the MVU? So like, if all of the games are all cinematic, all universally linked, like, that's not clear yet, But
that could happen. And then, so if you bring in Wolverine, do you do just Wolverine, or do you do the X-Men in the MVU or in the Insomniac universe, or the Marvel's video game universe?
Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? 'Cause I'm not sure. Like, because Spider-Man, I still think I can't remember. Like, Spider-Man might still be a slight thorny one for games, like for them to get hold of, but maybe. Because of Sony,
right?
Right, but maybe that isn't an issue in video games. I can't really remember.
Well, they made the perfect Spider-Man game, pretty much.
Yeah, but I can't remember what the licensing agreement is with Spider-Man in games. It's like, it's probably not so strict because obviously we had like Marvel vs. Capcom had Spider-Man in it, and I think like a few of the other. I want to say like the I can't remember what they're called, but like the Marvel like top down, where you're controlling like a hero as part of a party of heroes and stuff like that. Anyway, there's a one of those was on the Switch, right? And I think Spider-Man's in that, so it's like maybe the licensing for that isn't so tough. So yeah, we might have an MVU on our hands.
Yeah.
And more specifically, we might have an Insomniac MVU. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just it.
Presumably Wolverine will end up in the MCU, right? How long?
Yes,
I guess it's just a matter of time, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I guess they're letting X-Men sit a little bit because it has had stuff. And you could argue that the 2 recent Deadpool things are X-Men adjacent, right? They pull on X-Men characters a little.
Right, because Scarlet Witch is a mutant, right? Like, I know she isn't in the MCU, but she is, right? Isn't she?
Well, I don't know. No, I don't know. Don't know where that sits.
Yeah. I think her and Quicksilver, right? Because Quicksilver's in X-Men. And that was the weird thing that we thought was going to be awesome, but turned out to be nothing in
WandaVision.
In WandaVision, where it was
Spoilers.
Like, oh, it's the guy who plays Quicksilver, but in the other...
In the Fox universe.
Yeah.
Which was pretty neat, in fairness.
Because Quicksilver in the MCU immediately dies, right? In
yes.
the one film he's in.
He's in Ultron and dies in Ultron.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because then they, like, was it Days of Future Past? They immediately proved it's like, hey, you can make some badass sequences with Quicksilver.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the DC universe can do it with the Flash. Which is more iconic than Quicksilver, to be fair.
Yeah. Anywho, we know nothing about this Wolverine game other than its existence. So we got Gran Turismo 7 made its reappearance, which I don't think we'd seen since PlayStation 5's first showcase, first game reveal. They were showing off their ray tracing on the cars in like some very specific shots where it's like, here's a very shiny car, we're going to slowly rotate around it while the world around it changes, and you can see that it looks different in these environments. It's like, ooh, ray tracing. But that game looked great, but it looks very much like a Gran Turismo game, and it's like, which has me both like interested and like incredibly skeptical that I would like it at the same time, because I've just never really liked that handling model, and it's it very much looks like one of those.
Well, let's just hope that comes out and the Forza comes out and we'll have a choice again, because right now there isn't anything. Can't even buy Forza.
Yeah. Well, yeah, they're going to beat Microsoft to the punch, unusually.
By releasing a game 8 years later than the last one.
Yeah. So it's March 4th, 2022. It's got a date. And they've still got the town, it seems like. The town menu is still a thing. Car dealerships.
Gran Turismo menus are like a classic part of the experience. Really weird. Yeah. I hope they have stupid jazz music as well.
Well, I mean, I hope they have better jazz music, because what was the last? Was it GT5, the last one I played, and it just had atrocious music.
It was real bad.
Like, it wasn't even fun bad, kind of like GT1 and 2 kind of style, which was acceptable, but like GTA 5's music was just awful. And it wasn't helped by the loading times in that game, which were atrocious as well. So it's like,
well, that's one thing that PlayStation 5 should deal with.
Exactly, yeah. So you were forced to listen to these frequently terrible bits of music during extended load periods, and it's just like, this is no good. This is no good. I want this to end. So yeah, the one black mark that's appeared since the showcase, that may be a bit of a problem for players, is that it has got an always online requirement. That Polyphony claim is a cheat prevention mechanism, like even in single player.
Right, for like times and things.
Yeah, I guess it's for that. So they don't want the leaderboards corrupted in any way by like setting local times and then having them uploaded. And it's like, well, okay, I guess, but perhaps it would be nice to have a single player option. You just don't have any of that stuff at all. If you weren't doing that online, I don't know. I think it feels like there's ways around that. Like, you don't have to do that. But hey, I kind of liked the direction they took GT Sport in with, or the idea behind it anyway. And it's like, we want honourable drivers. We want to enforce like playing with skill and decorum. And it's like, well, yeah, you're facing an uphill battle there, but as long as if your systems support it, then great. Two more things. Spider-Man 2 officially announced. We got a little teaser trailer with featuring both Spider-Mans
and the villain, I guess.
Yeah, bit of Venom action. There's some Green Goblin voice work in there as well.
Oh yeah.
So maybe this is the continuation of the sort of slightly like underplayed Harry storyline in the first game.
Right, because he doesn't appear, does he?
He doesn't appear. No.
Talks to you all the time. He's like, I can't remember.
Well, he doesn't talk to you, doesn't he? He's like he's not there. He's supposedly on holiday or something. So you sort of.
Yeah, but he leaves you like messages, doesn't he?
Yeah, well, you're helping. You're helping the research station thing that he was a part of. Yeah. So it's, but yeah, I won't say it here, but there's a fairly big twist you can discover with him, in that game. So it's the goblins and the Osborns. Like, well, how's that playing out? I'm in. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man. I wonder if you like. I guess you probably should play Miles Morales. Is going to be the problem with that one. You probably need to play that before you play 2.
Right, to fully get what's going on.
Yeah.
Oh well, that'll be a while though, right? It's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know. They didn't say anything about when at this point. That team's busy. What of a Wolverine game and Ratchet and Clank just being out the door and things like that. And finally, we got to see a little bit of God of War Ragnarok, which, I'm not sure it was a particularly revelatory trailer. It looks, but no. I'm pretty happy because it looked like more God of War. And
it looked like more God of War, yeah, exactly.
And that first game is just so good. I'm not really bothered by the fact that it just looked like more.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm not sure I like Thor's design.
Well,
it's a bit funny. I mean, it's funny in the context of like, what is it called? Endgame Thor, right?
Right, yeah, Fat Thor from MCU,
yeah. With that being a thing, and then seeing their design for Thor in this, and he's basically Fat Thor, but without any modern trappings. Right. It's like that's kind of funny.
I mean, it's all just an interpretation, isn't it? Like they put their own spin on all of the Norse mythology characters so far, like Balder and Freya and everyone in the first game. So yeah, I think they'll keep up the aesthetic and the kind of style. Yeah,
there's supposed to be quite a large, like a good amount of the original cast returning in this one, by the looks of it. And also with the addition of like Thor, and Odin is apparently to make an appearance in this one, rather than just being a talked about part of the world. They've also kind of said that they're planning to wrap up the story in this one, and so instead of making it a trilogy, like they'll leave it as a 2-parter. And it's like, yeah, respect your decision. Like not everything has to be a trilogy. Just if it makes sense for the story to stop now, then stop now. It's fine. And a trilogy in games does take forever.
Exactly. A trilogy in films is one thing, but a trilogy in modern AAA games is like frickin' heck. Yeah. Massive. I can't even think of any these days. What's a trilogy in?
I mean, Mass Effect is the obvious one, but...
Yeah, Mass Effect, yeah. Yeah.
Final Fantasy 13?
No.
I mean, it sort of is.
That doesn't count. Yeah. Mass Effect is the obvious one, yeah. But even that's like, if they were making those games today, they would take longer. If they were at AAA, well, Mass Effect was AAA standard at the time.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, game development does take a very long time now. You could argue Horizon's heading that way, I reckon.
Yeah, probably Horizon. That could be a two-parter though. Who knows? Yeah, but yeah, that's another good example. Yeah.
Wow.
It's
not yet. Cool, it's heading that way. Dark Souls. Let's go with that.
Yeah, but Dark Souls doesn't.
But Dark Souls though. Bayonetta 3 if that ever comes out. But
really would be quite a long one. Yeah.
But again, none of those games really like the second one's not a cliffhanger for a third. It's not really a trilogy.
And anyway, Ragnarok is the end times of Norse mythology. Anyway, so they're skipping straight to the end.
Skip to the end.
Yeah. Is there an end of the? What's the end times in Greek mythology then? Have they already done that? And he's come out the other side.
Yeah, they already did that, right? The giants climb up Mount Olympus and
then
they just have a big fight, I guess.
Because he's killed all of the Greek gods anyway, including Zeus, right? His dad.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yeah. But Zeus sort of appeared in God of War, didn't he? Spoilers if you haven't watched that.
Sort of, yeah. He's having flashbacks to things.
Yeah, it's more like flashbacks. Imagine if it was Zeus versus Odin. That would be cool. Could happen.
I forget, what was how many of the original God of Wars were there? I mean, there was like 4 or 5 games, but I reckon only the numbered 3 were the main story ones, right? I can't. And I lost a lot. I wasn't that interested in God of War at all until the Norse one came along.
It does a good job of being independent of those games, but still having some callbacks to, the basics.
Keep it canon.
Cool.
And that was the PlayStation show. Yeah.
I did notice that Psychonauts 2 is available now on PlayStation 4.
They came good. Okay. I wasn't sure if they were going to delay that more.
No, it's available right now, published by Microsoft Corporation.
Yep.
On the PS4 store. So
I mean, they always said they were going to do that. They were going to fulfill the original promises of that game because it was kickstarted, I guess, like originally. So
exactly. Yeah.
And Microsoft weren't going to stop them, so it's not the first time that's happened. In fairness, but I mean, you could argue that Microsoft publishes Minecraft everywhere, so
that's true. Yeah. That makes me more likely to play it though in the short term, so that's good.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure that game would look and run perfectly fine on PS4. It's not exactly a hardware stressor.
Yeah, cool.
Presumably PS5 version to come. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, presumably.
Or maybe it'll just get a patch. It'll probably be that. It would probably just run better. Yes, that was the PlayStation thing. Not a huge amount outside of that. You had a momentary burst of excitement when I saw that there was a Wipeout game announced, Wipeout Rush, only to find that it looks like a terrible mobile game. Like, it's got the aesthetic, but it's not. You're not really racing. I think you're like directing your ship what to do with some kind of deck-based system.
What?
It looks odd. I don't know what it is. And it feels like a desecration of the Wipeout name.
Yeah.
What are you doing? I mean, it's been like a decade now since we've had a proper Wipeout game, so it's time, guys.
Who's going to do it though? The studio's gone.
Yeah, you'd have to get someone else in. I don't know. Do a deal with the Yakuza team who used to be Amusement Vision.
Yeah. Not if Nintendo get there first.
Exactly. Oh. I mean, Sony already have relationships with that studio, don't forget, because of their relationship with Judgment and Lost Judgment, which are still Sony exclusives. I thought maybe like the first Judgment might be like turning up on other platforms now, like Yakuza did, but no, that's still tied to PS4. So there was that. Little Big Planet, the very first Little Big Planet game, is having to shut down after they had months of downtime anyway, because they got hacked. They got hacked to hell and then couldn't recover it. Or at least it's getting like too prohibitively expensive to try and recover it now. So that's a shame. Anything you made and don't have a copy of in the original Little Big Planet is now probably lost to time. Because that's the thing with this game, right? It's not so much the servers are down, it's dead, oh, what a shame. That happens to every game. But it's like it's the legacy of creation that comes with it. Or has been lost with it. And it's like, how many Shark Run levels are we not going to have been lost to time, or Bombs from the Sky levels? There are a lot of those. And finally, the Nintendo Switch can now do Bluetooth audio.
Yeah.
But possibly not very well.
Yeah. I mean, the not very well part might make sense if the controllers weren't being too great.
Although I think that was more on the controller end of the connection, right? It wasn't like the system side of that connection that was the problem. It was the transmitter and the controllers was like had weird bad shielding or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Or too much shielding or something.
Right. So the fact that they, you wouldn't expect that of a Bluetooth headset, right?
But then again, even when the controllers were working well, it wasn't like the range on them was great.
So is this true of like is the Bluetooth audio bidirectional? As in, like, is it a mic as well as a? So do you have to, like? I suppose there's no games that support that, is there? There's nothing. There's nothing on the Switch that has a voice channel, so it would be kind of a waste. Does it mean Splatoon 3 might actually have in-game voice?
I doubt it. Well, I don't know, maybe, because if they could like, if it was implemented pretty much just for that one game, then it would give them an opportunity to sell a very specific hardware accessory, which Nintendo loves.
Oh no! You have to buy the Splatoon headset.
Yep.
Oh, that would be atrocious. Would it be? I mean, I'm a little undecided whether that would be better or worse than using the damn app. Oh, Nintendo. And I guess the only other thing that's like worth mentioning, I suppose, is that Nickelodeon fighting game. I don't know. The more we see of that, the less confused I'm getting. I think the idea is way better than the execution again, which is the problem with a lot of these platform fighters. But
yeah,
I mean, the biggest problem I'm having with it is it's becoming increasingly likely that there's no voice work in it, like at all. We've not seen any, like, unless it's all being done late. But that just seems like a huge mistake if that's true. The thing is like they're all cartoon characters, right? So even if they just went back to the original like source audio, assuming that still exists, yeah, there's probably like these like grunts and oofs and phrases you might want to pull in to make it work.
Yeah, potentially. Although maybe that would, a lot of those, if you tried to pull the actual references that the moves reference, it would definitely make it way too obvious. Whereas like it would really feel like just a mod where it's just like, this is just, you've just ripped audio straight from the show, and it just sounds really out of place.
Yeah, probably.
Speaking of weird audio things on the Switch,
my favourite.
This one last bit of not quite news because it's completely irrelevant, and it was just a weirdly interesting thing that I saw turn up on my YouTube, which must have come out of the last Nintendo Indie Direct or whatever they've done recently. Someone's making basically a Photoshop thing for the Switch, essentially.
Oh, is this Colors Live or something? Yeah.
It's a drawing application for the Switch, because obviously the Switch has a touch screen.
Right.
But it has a stylus that plugs into the headphone jack.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is just like, what the hell? How the fuck does this even work?
Yeah, so like, is the headphone jack can't take input, can it? Like, it's not that sort of headphone jack.
No, I mean, unless it's like...
It's not a tripole, is it? Or unless they fitted a tripole and never used it?
Well, the like when they talk about this stylus, they call it like the Echo stylus or something. So I'm wondering if it's like it's sending like maybe an ultrasound out through the headphone jack through the stylus to do some pressure detection somehow, and then it's like Bluetooth transmitting it back to the system. Like that doesn't really make sense. But like, why the hell would it plug into that port?
That makes no sense at all. I don't understand.
Unless it's just power somehow. But then you've got a USB port on the bottom of the Switch. Just use that.
Maybe that USB port can't actually give out power because Nintendo's USB implementation isn't particularly standard.
Maybe it is only
well, isn't that how like the adapters that everyone's been using up till now for the Bluetooth audio? They plug into the USB, don't they?
Yeah, and I think you can charge controllers directly from that, right? If you get those, like the stands where you can attach the controllers to, and that plugs into the USB port.
But it plugs into the USB port on the dock, doesn't it? Not the...
Oh, well, yeah, no, I guess so. That is different. Because otherwise you just attach the controllers to the system and they charge.
Yeah.
There's not actually a reason to do that. Yeah, if you've got it in portable mode where you can access that USB port on the bottom. But yeah, I thought that was extremely weird. That somehow they're using the headphone jack to run a stylus that allows the Switch to have proper pressure sensitivity. Because I guess, does the screen not have pressure sensitivity? I mean, probably not, right? It's probably just a location.
I mean, why didn't they just... I mean, is that... Maybe they just plugged that in there because that's a way of making the stylus attached to the console? Like, it's not actually functional. It's just like...
That's not a very secure connection, though. The USB port would probably be more secure if you were just doing that.
I don't know. Some USB-C ports suck. See my phone. In terms of, like, yankability, I guess.
Or they could have gone the hardcore, really bad idea way of, like, those old weird Kirby games on the GBA where, like, the stylus plugs into the cartridge. And you have to have your little cartridge flap on top of the Switch open.
Yeah. I mean, that would be especially odd. Why didn't they just Bluetooth it? Like the whole thing?
Well, yeah, is the question. I mean, that's why I was suspecting it might be some kind of, like, literally sound-based system, because that would presumably be, like, a shitty, cheap technology rather than having to bother with actual Bluetooth.
That is very odd. And like, I guess maybe they have to license something with Nintendo if they want to attach another Bluetooth controller to it and have it in the OS, and they just didn't pay for
Nintendo would literally, like, maybe Nintendo don't actually allow you to connect anything to their Bluetooth that's reserved for their controllers.
Yeah.
So they had to come up with a weird workaround.
Very odd, though. I'd like to see someone tear that down when it comes out and be like,
what the hell
what is it doing? Let's listen to the audio out of this pencil. What have you got to say to me, pencil?
Weird.
The things you've drawn.
Alright, that's the news.
That is indeed.
It's time for what you've been playing. Zach, you better go, seeing as you're under the weather.
Yeah, get through as much as I can, but luckily there's not really that much to talk about, I guess. Not because I've been ill, that's only been the last 2 days, but I just haven't been playing very much recently, I suppose. I've been annoyed by Rocket League. I've hit that classic point where I've dipped into the bottom of the sine curve, and it's just like, wow, these people suck.
Oh, no.
And I can't get out because I need teammates. I don't function without teammates. I can't carry a team by myself.
See, I've been having the opposite of that of late. Like, I'm on the upper
of the sine curve. Up into the higher end.
Well, to a point where I don't know. It's not like my rank is particularly different because I'm only really playing extra mode games without you, and then I seem to just be being matched with people that are way better than me, like obviously way better than me, especially in hoops. And
I mean, in the extra modes, maybe that's just literally just a function of the population, I guess.
Yeah, perhaps. But it's working out nicely for me. Let's put it that way.
See, I've gone quite a long way. I went like all the way back down into like Diamond 2 at one point, and I was like, man, this sucks.
Oh no, Diamond 2, what a shame.
I'm never going to get back out of here. But luckily I've made it back up to Diamond 3 so far, so hopefully I can just need a string of not terrible teammates for a little while, because I had like a super bad run of bad teammates for like a real long time. Sometimes I wish that Rocket... I mean, you can look this kind of thing up on external sites if you're willing to, submit whatever information they require, but like I wish Rocket League did have like in-game tracking, or any game really had in-game tracking of data, like the old school, like the old days of Halo 2 and stuff. Just show me my last 10 games, the scores, anything.
Yeah, some kind of history. I guess it's to make you not. I kind of appreciate it to some extent when that's not there, because it's like I don't necessarily want to know how bad it's really been. If I'm feeling all right about myself right now, and it's actually been a terrible session, that's cool. That's cool not to know.
Well, then don't go and look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess. Or hide it away, like do what's like Call of Duty and did for a bit, and where it's just like actually, we can just hide it away on an app. It's like if you're really interested.
Yeah. I mean, that is kind of what those external websites do for Rocket League, but they're all, suspicious external websites. Data gathering. Don't want none of that.
Just make an official one and then problem solved.
Yeah, I guess that's also what some previous games have done, like Battlefield even. I mean, the battle log shit was quite good for stat tracking, really. Better in some of the games than others, but it had it. So that's Rocket League. The main other thing, I've still been playing more Dwarf Fortress, I guess. Just been hanging around in the modern version, continuing that fortress a bit further. Although I feel like I've got to the point where everything's a bit too stable, and that's not what you want in Dwarf Fortress. You want shit to go weird. And then shit did start to get a little weird, but not like super weird. Like the woman in my military who I'd pissed off by kicking out her werewolf aunt,
right.
Finally calmed down, or not really calmed down. It's like I gave her enough positive bonuses to negate the negative bonus, and she went back to neutral, like happiness. But unfortunately, there was one other dwarf who was equally pissed off and has just continued to get more pissed off. And then he reached the point where he started actually like having tantrums, which are the most dangerous thing in Dwarf Fortress because of the way like combat and the strength of dwarfs and like the damage system works in Dwarf Fortress. It's incredibly likely that a tantruming dwarf is just going to punch someone and then they die. Because it's literally he killed the mayor of my town. He went down to the mayor's office to have a meeting to basically complain at him, which is one of the ways they get it's one of the counters to like the negative emotions is to basically just bitch at the person in charge for a while.
Yeah.
So he went down there to do that, but then in the middle of that conversation he started having a tantrum and he just basically punched the mayor in the head once and he died. And I was like, well, great, thanks.
Dwarves
luckily the mayor is kind of the mayor is just kind of a ceremonial position in Dwarf Fortress. It doesn't really matter that much. Like, they immediately just elect another guy to be the mayor.
Like Foursquare for dwarves.
Yeah. And so, yeah, he's killed I think he's killed like 3 people so far in his various tantrums, but then he got killed, so the last tantrum got a bit more into an actual brawl where several people got involved. But even that can be a problem, because there's this weird, like, glitch. Well, it's not really. It's sort of a bug, but not really. Where when the dwarves are tantruming him, so they start a fight, because it's 2 people who normally wouldn't be aggressive to each other. It has to somehow make them aggressive to each other, obviously. But then that can like cause a weird, what they call a loyalty cascade, where like the people fighting, like their friends can become enemies towards the other guy's friends, and so you sort of just get like 2 factions that just spontaneously generate inside the fortress, and then they all just start fighting each other.
That's amazing.
Which can be really bad,
but great. Like,
because
it sort of makes sense, right? Like you get into a bar fight, it's like your mates come to you. We'll come. Well, you'd hope we'd come to you, come and have your back, right?
But obviously, the problem with that is that I guess the sort of bug part of it is that it sometimes never resets. So even after the fight is finished and like people have calmed down or whatever, there's still just these two factions. And then whenever they see each other in the fortress, they generally just run away from each other at that point because it's not a fight any longer. But obviously they'll never be able to exist in the same fortress without constantly seeing each other and running away.
So you need to send one faction away to a town.
Yeah, but then there's no way of seeing that faction, essentially. You have to like work it out manually or whatever. But luckily I think I managed to avoid that in this case.
You see two people running away from each other, you send one away, and it's like, oh no, I got the wrong one.
Yeah. But yeah, that guy who got super angry was kind of my fault because I accidentally traumatized him. But it was only because he sucked. Like basically
Jack the HR consultant.
Well, basically my body parts pile had got like super full of like random bits of enemies and underground creatures and whatnot, and I needed to move it all out of the way to make space. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just shove it all over into a corner essentially. And obviously, in order to do that, because each individual body part needs to be picked up by an individual person, I was just like, well, yeah, okay, everyone's just going to come down here and shift all this stuff out of the way. But unfortunately, this one guy had like a particularly low tolerance to. I'm not even sure what exact like emotion or willpower it was exactly, but like it just really fucked him up from seeing all these corpses, and then he just became eternally pissed off, and it only got worse over time. So that was kind of my fault, kind of. But again, that's like I only know that because I looked at Dwarf Therapist, where I was like, oh, he has really bad stats for like bravery or whatever, like way worse than the whole rest of my fortress. Although that may be a consequence of me fucking him up rather than being cause, because I don't know what his stats were beforehand.
But you're still brave enough to punch the mayor in the head.
Well, yeah. I mean, tantruming is sort of a weird state where they basically don't know what the fuck what they're doing. They don't know what's going on in that state.
I see red.
Yeah, it's not quite the same as Berserk, but it's similar.
Like the word tantruming does just conjure like a small child though, doesn't it?
Well, yeah.
But I don't want to move the body parts.
Punching random people and animals and knocking over any furniture they happen across.
I don't want to lift up people's severed heads.
It did give my medical dwarves an opportunity to do some healing. Because there's like, after that one last fight where the guy died and he got into a bigger brawl, there was like 5 random injured people. And it was like, oh, medical dwarves, you're going to get some training. Go and actually learn how to heal these people better, maybe. Hopefully they all survive. And they did. But some of them are still quite injured. Some of them are definitely crutched up. And some of them, a couple of them still have infections, which may still kill them at this point.
So, like, if any of them did actually die, would that mean you'd end up with a cascade of a different kind, where it's like their mates would be pissed off, and then
I think that only is I don't think that will like cause any fighting again, but it might cause
unhappy people.
I suppose. Yeah. Yes,
more
but
negative.
Generally speaking, apart from those 2 guys who were pissed off, like, well, it's like most of my fortresses is in the neutral category, where it's just like. That's basically where they start when they migrate to the fortress. They start at neutral, and then like I've got quite a few up in the higher levels of happiness, but no one lower. So I don't know if it might be quite easy for them to drop out of neutral, but hopefully my general niceness of my fortress will compensate for that. Even if it never makes them legitimately happy, it will just keep them in neutral well enough.
I mean, I wonder if that's a technical term. Like, can a real therapist actually be like, you've entered the higher levels of happiness? Welcome.
Yeah. Apart from that one little problem, it's definitely starting to get like, I don't know, everything's running too smoothly. So I'm like, oh, I need to start digging down into the deeper cave layers and start. About. Oh, I did also have a second like forgotten beast turn up because they're like one of the most dangerous enemies that can come to the fortress. Like they're randomly generated and they just wander around in the caverns down in the deeper parts, and then so occasionally they'll just come onto your map, and they're all historically tracked in the world, and they're also always there because like the big surface creatures like dragons or whatnot can get killed by the general goings on of the world. So you might not ever see any of them, but the ones down in the caves just are always there. So you're always going to get them. But I think it might be the third or maybe the second one of those turn up, and it was a giant water blob that like shot steam out of itself. And I was like, that seems quite dangerous because
yes.
Well, it's because I have like my door, the doorway that guards the entrance to the caves. It has a bunch of traps in front of it, but Forgotten Beasts are like trap immune, so the traps don't actually affect it at all. It just walks straight over them. And then in order to detect any stealthed enemies, I have like a guard dog tied up at that door. So obviously the Forgotten Beast was just like, I'm just going to come over here and kill this dog, and then just completely ignores all the traps and walks up and murders the shit out of this dog using its steam attack. And I'm like, well, that's probably going to be bad. But then I'm not actually sure what happened exactly, but like I think it tried to break down the door, but because it was just a blob of water, it just like destroyed itself and collapsed into a pool. Because like, I brought all my military down and they're all standing behind the door, and I was like, I'm going to wait here for it to bust open the door, and then everyone can attack it at once, and that maybe give us the best chance to kill it. But then it just died somehow.
Okay.
Died in its attempt to open the door. I'm not quite sure what exactly happened.
Was it going to be like a T-1000 moment where it like turns into a pool and then reforms?
Yeah, that's also what I was worried about. Because like the combat log that tells you, it finished fighting the dog, and then I was like, and then it fell over, and I was like, oh. But then when I looked,
the dog fell over, or like
no, the blob fell over, and it made like a hissing noise, like a steam, like its steam attack makes a hissing noise.
Okay,
but it fell over and made a steamy fat sound, and I was like, okay, that's weird. But then when I looked in the unit list, it had died, and there was just a pool of water outside the door.
Did it steam itself?
I was like, okay, that's weird.
Like it fell over and steamed on the floor side or something, so the steam just blew back on itself and like.
Well, I was
melted its gelatinous skin. I don't know.
I was wondering if maybe like the chains that were attached to the dog were still like hot from the forge or something. So it tried to like walk onto the square where the chains were and then just evaporated.
Oh wow!
But I don't think they were. I think it was just when it tried to like when it tried to use its attack to break down the door. I think it like broke part of itself by the impact, and because blobs don't really have any body parts apart from just the mass, as soon as it breaks it, they just die.
Yeah, it's just like, I broke myself. Oh. I guess, you could argue it's a bit like
supposedly not actually that dangerous.
It could be like, like it's like a balloon, I guess. Like you pierce the surface and it just sort of goes kaboosh.
Yeah. According to the wiki, blobs are not very dangerous unless they're made of very specific things, or, the projectile attack, the steam attack, kind of dangerous. But provided you can actually get to fight them, they're maybe not that dangerous because they only have like one body part, so you can't really miss your attacks. It's always going to hit that one body part. But then if you're fighting maybe a blob of molten iron or something, you're probably going to have problems.
Yeah. Can they be anything then?
Yeah, mostly. I don't know if it does give them molten metals. I don't know if it can give things for. You could probably get a blob of like magma.
Oh boy,
that's probably real bad.
You get a blob of gold.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there is the other version of the Forgotten. One of the randomly generated things Forgotten Beasts can be is like just inorganic, but not necessarily blobs. So you could just get like a thing that's made of rock, which makes them very, very difficult to kill.
Get the pickaxes, boys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then apparently the worst case scenario is theoretically you can get a Forgotten Beast that's made of steel, because of the way combat damage works in Dwarf Fortress. Like, if your weapon is of a higher quality material than the enemy, you're pretty much always going to win because it will just eventually cut through their armor. But then obviously steel is the highest. So if you have a Forgotten Beast that's made of steel and you can only have steel weapons, then it's pretty much just based on, it's a stalemate in terms of combat advantage for your weaponry, which means you're going to lose because the Forgotten Beast is just way bigger than you.
But then presumably you throw more people at it, they'll cut down a bit of its armor eventually.
Well, yeah, but it's made of steel, so that's going to take a long time. You're going to be chipping away at it from fucking ever.
Until you find the bit that leaks.
Well, I mean, there are like the bronze colossus, which isn't a forgotten beast; it's a specific enemy. So it's just a big bronze statue essentially that just wanders around fighting you. But because they have a body shape with like limbs or whatever, you can just get lucky and be like, "Oh, I accidentally cut off its head," and it died. Apparently, there's a classic Dwarf Fortress tale of someone who tried to fight a bronze colossus, basically realized he couldn't possibly win the fight, tried to run away, ran over like a nest of rabbits essentially, and then just picked up a rabbit and just chucked it, and then it decapitated the bronze colossus because throwing it back to Dwarf Fortress is so ridiculously overpowered.
Nice. Fuck you, and just chucks a rabbit at it.
Hey.
So did it happen to be the rabbit from
Tony
Python?
Yeah. So that's Dwarf Fortress. That's pretty much all I've been playing.
Once again,
stop talking.
Dwarf Fortress tells the funniest stories for being such an odd game.
If you can read it.
If you can play it, yeah. If you can remotely fathom what's happening.
That's what I thought. That's what I was thinking in the scenes in the Matrix Reloaded, where the operators look at the Matrix. It's like, oh, this is just Dwarf Fortress.
Yeah, I mean that must be what it's like. You just learn what all these symbols mean.
Because that's the whole point, right? Is that like it's better to look at the code than it is to look at like a video representation, because there's more information encoded that way. It's exactly like Dwarf Fortress. It's like this is better than having a tile
not
set.
Quite exactly.
You actually have more density of information if you could actually read this.
I don't think that's quite true in Dwarf Fortress. It's more like the information is there, it's just hidden between like 5 layers of menus.
Yeah, okay, fair.
But maybe that's what the Matrix, maybe when they show the Matrix representation where the green stuff flows down, but it's clearly like it's got depth to it. So maybe it's just like it's essentially like layers of menus stacked on top of each other that you can read simultaneously.
Yeah.
And that's more or less it. Me and Rob recorded a video of Deep Rock Galactic just because we were playing it.
Exciting. See that on YouTube.
Yeah,
our Happy Salad YouTube channel. Right. So that's something you've been playing then, Rob. What else?
A bit Derg, yeah. We might do a bit of that a bit later.
Potentially. If I'm still awake.
Yeah, if you're alive.
For it.
Yeah. Not a huge list for me this time because I don't really know why. Really, I went back to some other things I've dabbled with a little bit. Like, so did a few more levels on Katamari Damacy reroll, and it's like, it's pretty much confirming what I thought about like the original Katamari, and that it's like it's not as good as we love Katamari. That's the sequel. The sequel was just a better game, just a more varied and interesting thing. But that doesn't make re-roll any less fun. It's still good. It's still good. And the music's always nice and catchy, which is nice. But like the game just like it focuses more on that core aspect of getting bigger. Just get bigger, get big. And there's the occasional offshoot one where it's just like, hey, on this level, collect all the crabs. Get as many crabs as you can. Get the crabs. So it's still fun. But I wish that thing was like they'd put the effort in to make it 60 frames per second. Like, why is it not? Like, you could have done it. Like, why? So to dabbled with a bit of that, but naturally, the thing I've been playing the most of is Psychonauts. Psychonauts 2. And I still like that thing a great deal. I'm still sort of waiting for that. Like, I don't know. The creativity is high here for sure, but I think I still feel like perhaps I'm a bit spoilt by that first game. There's like elements of it's like I get that feeling that there's some spark that's just a little missing, like, but only very slightly. Like that's I don't want that to sound too harsh. Like it's still a good time, but there's just a little something that's just not there. Like maybe it's just the wonderment of like what they pulled off or tried to do with that first game.
Yahtzee was saying something similar in his review. He was saying it made him want to replay the original game.
Yeah,
which
there's
isn't
a bit
necessarily good.
There's a bit of that. It's like the first game had a sort of running oddness like throughout all of its levels. There was the teeth. Let's just say it. The teeth, where like teeth and like dentistry stuff would sort of randomly turn up in places where it shouldn't, and they're like there were more mysterious themes, I guess, running through everyone, which was which worked really well and was quite interesting. It was like that's not here. There's that sort of like themed thing is not here this time. And it does without getting too spoilery, it sort of does the Chosen One thing a little bit.
Right.
Like that trope is here to some extent, or it's like Raz was just a kid, and it's like suddenly he's potentially not just a kid. Like there's a backstory you didn't know, maybe. That's a bit spoilery, sorry. But like there's it's like I'm not sure I'm into that. I mean it's tragic, and there's some like nice storytelling around some of that stuff, and some nice reveal, and like the way some of those reveals are handled is nice. And there is one level that is, I think there's one level that I'm going to remember a bit more than is like the Sensorium, which I don't. Yeah, again, it's a little hard to explain. Like, okay, I will say that was it Phil Spencer has been tweeting pictures from like Psychonauts like recently, and it's the Sensorium is the really bright hippie looking level. So there's footage of it out there, but it's like the setup is there, and if I'm right about the guest voice that's in that as well, it's like, oh, yep, that totally makes sense. Yep, okay, that's cool.
If you're right about
who I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
It was like, oh, yep, that makes total sense. Yep, that's cool. And then things happen that means you don't really hear that voice again for a while. It's like, oh, okay, damn. I thought that was going to be way cooler than it ended up being. But it was still pretty cool. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I'm sort of just. I think I'm totally. Just missing this big moment that's not really coming out, and like I've got past what I would call the second point of no return, because this game has a couple where it's like the first time you move out of one area, the sort of hub world that you start in, and then you end up in a different sort of bit, and then it's presented me with another. Like, hey, are you sure you're ready to do this? So I think I must be pretty damn close to the end now. So I'm hoping one of these last few levels is going to be like something particularly weird. I want to be totally weirded out. That's what I'm looking for. I want all, as I say, all the levels have been super creative, but I don't think necessarily like any one of them has been like just as absolutely bonkers as some of the stuff you come across towards the end of the first game.
Yeah.
It's like, where's the milkman?
Classic. Yeah, it must be hard to follow up, right?
Sure. Yeah. And I think they might be like aware of the fact that it's like, oh hey, it's been like 20 years since we made one of these. Like it might be another 20 years till we make another one. We might never make another one. So like I think the direction they're taking the story is a little bit like, who cares? Let's do anything big or final we want to do. Let's do that.
Let's just do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's a real good time. Like I've only had one issue with it. Well, I've had a couple of like what I would call standard ass platforming problems. Like in the it's. I sort of mentioned that when I first started talking. It's like that, like perhaps the game could do with some more invisible walls about the place to stop me from getting places I shouldn't. And it's like I encountered a spot where I got stuck, like in a permanent fall. Like Raz was just doing the fall animation, and it's like I can't get you out of this because I don't have any more jumping abilities or anything that's going to push me out of this hole. that I seem to have found myself in. So I reloaded my save, and it's like, oh god, this actually saved quite a while ago. Because I was just doing hub world stuff and just collecting crap in the hub, and it's like, right, well, I better go do all that again. So yeah, and I found a few more spots since then that have not been necessarily 100% deal breakers, but places I really shouldn't be, and that the geometry doesn't work. So I'm like stuck behind a book on one level, and I'm just like, oh, I can't get myself out of here. And then you get yourself out of there, and you're like, success, and you immediately fall in water, which puts you back, but it puts you back to the last place you were stable on the ground, which was in the hole that I shouldn't be in. And it's like,
oh no,
and I'm like, oh damn it. So like this problem got a little bit more intense then, because it's like I've got to figure out, I've either got to like lose a whole load of progress potentially, or I've got to try and figure out a way out of this hole so I can get on land. Which I did eventually do. But it was it was a slightly painful experience. And it would be remiss to say like it doesn't like the first, this was true of the first game as well, like it has a little bit of the whole the collectathon problem is here, as it is with like every platformer, I guess, where it's like you can collect hundreds of the of the figments of imagination in the levels, and then be left with an annoying stat at the end that says you missed like one.
Oh, great!
Out of 200 in this level, and you're like, bloody hell, where the hell is that going to be? Just one. And it's like the maps it gives you for people's minds are completely useless, because they're not really maps. They're just like a picture of puzzle pieces, and there's more puzzle pieces filled in with the more. I don't know if it's supposed to be the more areas you've been to, if it is just like a visual representation of of progress, of how much of the collectibles you've got. But it's like, so you can't really figure out where in the level the thing you're missing is. You've just got to go in and go everywhere in that level. And some levels are big, or maybe slightly annoying to traverse because it's a platformer. The traversal is supposed to be a pain in places.
Yeah, sure.
And you're just looking for this one tiny thing, and you're like, that sometimes is actually kind of well hidden in the environment, and you're like, oh no, this is a bit tedious. But I want that check mark. I want that green check next to the levels to say I've done it.
You've got to get every single figment.
Yeah, and I think one of the collectibles is apparently, I had to look this up. One of the collectibles is glitched until you finish the game and go back to it. If you didn't manage to get it the first time round, which is hugely likely. The way the actual levels are designed when you're playing them the first time through, it's like things can just happen at points, and it's like, oh, I didn't realize that was going to be a sort of like a trigger for the next thing happening. And while you can go back into people's brains to go to the areas where collectibles were, it's like without the triggers, it's like there's this one instance where the thing you want to get you can't get unless you managed it the first time. So yeah, it's whatever. It's got a few rough edges, but then the first game had a few rough edges, so I'm not holding that against them.
Yeah. Inject enough style into things to make it worth it.
There's definitely plenty of moments where I've laughed at myself in it as well. So it's like if I have another criticism, because I'm good at them, I wish the character barks were a little less frequent. So do you know what I mean by like vocal barks in games, like where they not necessarily barks, I suppose, but the reactive audio to things. So it's like there's an enemy type later on in the game called an enabler, who is basically a little bit like the engineers in Halo ODST. They dance around the battlefield just casting a shield on some other enemy, and you can't hurt that enemy while the enabler's in play. So you've got to kill the enabler first. But like in the middle of like fighting other things and stuff like that, if you land one hit on the thing that is shielded by the enabler, Raz will comment every time saying, "Oh, I can't do damage to that thing. I've got to kill that enabler." And it's like there's like 3 or 4 ways he'll say that, but he says it every time. Right, and it's like, okay, dial it back a bit. And it's like the same thing is in most of the boss fights, where there's too much talk going on, and you can't really sometimes over each other. Like not your own voice saying two different lines at once, but there'll be like multiple different characters all saying things at the same time, and it's a little hard to hear what they're saying. And I guess you could miss jokes that way because it's all just a bit much. So I think they could probably have done with like toning down the vocals in places. Not because the recordings are bad, just because the frequency is a bit much. It's like every time,
it's like slightly overused.
Yeah, like every time you go into the brain tumbler, which is the device you use to go back to previous levels, you can he'll like every time you walk up to it in an unskippable bit of speech, he'll go, am I ready to go into to use the brain tumbler now? And then a pop-up will come up saying yes or no. You say yes, and he goes, okay, I'm ready to go to the collective unconscious. And it's like, he'll say that every single time. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, I know. You don't have to describe to yourself as a character the thing you're doing. It's a little much in places.
Right. Yeah. I can see how that could get annoying.
Yeah.
Like, I could see how, because it's very high concept, so that I can understand the desire to want to have expository things.
Oh, sure.
But, like, if you trust the audience, right? Trust the player to understand it, at least.
If you've done it several times, maybe dial it back a bit. Yeah. It's fine having you explain it the first time. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. Like, we get the idea. That's why we like this game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a bit of that. I saw there's a few more things that have come out recently that I would like to play. A couple of things on Game Pass that I will play, but I won't talk about those yet. I did have a little bit of a muck around with Flight Simulator.
Oh, really?
I kind of just wanted to see what it looked like.
Install that on your Xbox?
On my Xbox, yeah. And I like because I'm not going to be diving into this particularly deeply or doing anything, but I did just kind of want to see what it looked like and just fly around some places. Yeah. And
a truly next gen game.
A
game, you might call it a game. It's a simulator.
Yeah, there's some activities you can do that I haven't tried yet, like things like, do you want to land in trying conditions? I think it calls it, or do you want to like here's some actual flight training lessons. It's like you learn what all the instruments do and things like that. And they've
That's cool.
And you know they've announced they're going to be adding like sort of air races and things to it, like a bit like the Red Bull air race, but not Red Bull. You know, that kind of thing. Small planes, sharp turns, and obviously the Top Gun stuff to come next year.
I don't really understand how they're going to do that, because surely a military sim is quite different to the civilian sim. But
who knows what it even is? Like, are they actually going to have shooting? They're probably not going to have shooting, right? It's probably just going to be some sort of.
But even like modelling a Hornet taking off in an aircraft carrier would be quite different to what they have currently in the game. But
yeah, so I've only really been flying it with like most of the sim turned off, right? So it gives you like easy, medium, and real settings for most things, and you can tweak them around. I mean, there's a lot of options in this game. There's a lot of options, and it can be a bit much to try and navigate with a controller through all these things. It's clearly designed for a bit like, you know, some of the menu systems are designed for like using a mouse and things like that, because they literally pop up windows and things that you can manipulate whilst you're flying if you want. But you don't have to do that. Do some of that stuff. But there's a lot if you want a lot. It even goes into the detail. I noticed of like when I tried to set off from a place of like being like, here are the radio frequencies that are being used in the area. Like it just straight up tells you. It's like you'll need these frequencies and they'll be switched at these points. And it's like, wow, okay, this is pretty deep. And it's pulling air traffic live. And it's pulling weather conditions live, mostly accurate. But yeah, I would say from the sky where you're supposed to be, damn, that is a fine looking game.
Yeah.
But I couldn't resist finding my house.
No, of course
just
not.
Flying a drone down to the ground and seeing what it made of it. And of course, like most buildings in England, it just turns into brown bungalows.
Which isn't far off.
No, but like with a door made for like a giant. It's
Yeah,
it's really odd what it contracts it to. And even I went ahead and downloaded.
What does AI generated Needham Market look like?
Nothing like Needham Market. Like it's like the buildings are roughly the right shape and in the right place, and the roads are obviously in the right place. But it's like, yeah, if you go look at it close, it's like, yeah, none of those buildings look right. It's as you might expect, it's working from a limited pool of information, and it can only generate so much. But it's and the image, I feel like the maps they've pulled are relatively old as well. Like, so there's some construction sites that are like years old and things, and where I know there no longer are and things, and it's it's all Bing data for the most part. So yeah, I found my house, and it's like it's not a it's considerably smaller, and you occasionally find houses that have just been like ended up in the wrong place and they're just in the road, like right in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
And it's as a result, like it can be quite confusing to like fly the camera over places and then be like, are we in the right place? This doesn't. It sort of looks right, but it doesn't look right enough. But like I said, from the
at least there isn't like. Do you remember the famous? What was it? Some suburb of Adelaide or something. There was an error in some OpenStreetMap data, and so there was a gigantic skyscraper in the middle of this like suburb. Like there was like the tallest building on Earth or something had been generated in Flight Simulator.
Oh, that's quite good. Yeah, so it's not like that. It's not like and like places town like you could fly over Ipswich, and it was that was a little more recognizable. But again, none of the buildings are really right. Like Christchurch Mansion has for some reason been turned into a block of flats, and it's the right shape of block of flats, but it's just like I downloaded like the UK World Pack as well, which I think only updates a few cities rather than like it added London. I'm not even sure London was in the mix on the original download.
No, it wasn't.
Which is 100 gigs, by the way.
Right.
Like the game is 100 gigs just off the bat, and then you'd have to download like several gigs of extras for locations.
Even in that, because obviously the game, but like I thought everything was streamed.
I think there is a lot of content that isn't. So like it uses a base level of data to do things, and then streams on more detailed versions as you go.
Oh, okay.
Like it does present you with an option at the start. It's like, do you want to use live data or not? And it says like, yeah, things are more accurate and will look a bit cleaner and a bit more close to life if you use the live streaming. But you don't have to if you don't want to.
That's interesting. I'm surprised
because I think they're worried about people's data caps, right? It's
right. Oh, I suppose. But like, you're probably not gonna. The average person probably isn't going to fly over every inch of the Earth, right? So they're not going to use like
all of that data,
good chunk of that data. Yeah, I think so. It would make sense to like stream more of it, but yeah, I don't know.
And I can confirm, as everyone else has, the cloud tech is hella impressive.
Yeah, it's the cloud.
It looks fantastic.
Yeah, so cool. It's such a great job they've done on that game, or sim or whatever. It's cool.
Yeah, it seems like they've paid. Yeah, there's definitely a few they call them the points of interest, like around the globe, but they've paid quite a lot more attention. Things are a bit more detailed. Yeah. Like I flew around New York, videos, for instance, and like, oh yeah, a lot more care has been put into this. And there are some buildings where like the effects don't, or the texturing doesn't really work because it's like, I guess the texture of the side of the skyscrapers has been photoed and has caught some like awkward bit of reflection or something, and it's like that's just been slapped onto the side of the building rather than modeled. Because they've got so much to deal with. There are shortcuts here and there, so there's definitely spots where you go, well, that looks a bit odd. Even in these areas where they've focused their efforts, but they do still, it stands up when you're flying around them properly, and not being an idiot like me and flying drones 2 feet off the ground to see how bad it looks. I don't know if I'll return to that. I might do some other activities just to see how fleshed out they are. But like it was nice
if you're not into actual flight simulation, then it's kind of a fun toy, isn't it? Just as like see the world modelled.
Like I said, I just wanted to see what it looked like. Yeah, we flew over. Yeah. I think we flew from Stansted across to Felixstowe, which took a while, in fairness, because I was in a tiny little plane. and even that, wasn't a quick flight.
No.
But I did that, and it's then I realized I could have took off from somewhere much closer. But yeah, it's impressive that it exists. Like, and that Microsoft put so much behind it. Like, that's fascinating.
Like an interview with the developer, and I was surprised how much he was going on about. I always find this really weird because obviously I work in with web technology a lot or whatever, like browser stuff. And do you remember SimCity, the bad one or whatever? I remember them talking about how the interface is actually all web technology, JavaScript and stuff, all the UI, and then obviously the games in 3D. And I was like, that's weird. Why would you choose to do that? Surely that's not the most efficient, but maybe that's just an easy way to make UI these days. Well, I guess you can lean on a lot of stuff, but it doesn't seem like the most efficient to run like a whole web browser on top of your game just to do the UI.
I guess it could have also been for modding, I guess.
Yeah, maybe for modding. But then I was watching the interview with the flight simulator guy, and he was like, yeah, the entire cockpits of every single plane, it's all a browser.
Wait, what?
What? Yep, every single dial and control inside the cockpit, it's all web. It's all a browser. It's all a DOM. And it's like, and he talked about, he kept talking about the challenge of doing that. And I'm like, why did you do that then?
Yeah. That's so strange.
But yeah, that's the case.
Wait, so
really weird.
The dials, but the dials are properly modeled. Like most of them, they're not just like a flat texture that's being.
I think he must have maybe he meant the glass cockpit, like the screens and stuff.
Yeah, there's definitely some computer screens going on in some of the more modern planes.
Yeah, maybe he meant just the airliners and stuff. But I thought he meant literally or at least if they're the steam gauges or whatever, they're 3D modeled or whatever. But maybe it's that's powered by a JavaScript program. But then the
behavior of it, right? Is
but he was literally talking about it like there's a web browser running in the cockpit of these things. I was like, that's a really weird choice.
That's a very strange choice.
But I don't know. Yeah,
I mean,
anyway,
I can understand it on some level because it's there must be a wealth of talent for like yourself out there that are pretty, well versed in web UI and how that works. So it's if you can use that talent. And if you're desperate for I suppose, or,
I guess so.
or need a specific
and for modding,
then perhaps it makes sense. But you're right. In terms of game engine, that feels crazy inefficient.
Yeah. Anyway, I just thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, weird one.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's kind of me. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting. There always is, but that's pretty much what I've been dabbling with.
Cool, yeah. Well, what am I doing? I'm still on Breath of the Wild. I was just in the Rito village, checking it out again. Which is a nice village, but it's basically just a spiral. Right. It's basically one long line that's curved around a tree, so it's not quite as interesting as the Gerudo village one. Which is almost like a whole town, isn't it? The Gerudo one, it's pretty big.
Well, I mean, it's one courtyard. There's one courtyard and one back alley.
Yeah, there's the back alley with the bar in it or whatever, and then there's the kind of military area at the back of that one.
I noticed you said Gerudo, not Gerudo. Is that the correct pronunciation? Do we know?
I don't know. I don't know what it's supposed to be. Maybe it is Gerudo. Zach, do you know?
No.
What's the betting they say it in Age of Calamity somewhere? Or any game with
they should probably
Zelda.
say it in because Breath of the Wild is voiced in some of the cutscenes, but I've got it all switched to Japanese, so I
cool.
wouldn't know. Which I did as soon as it was possible because I thought the English voice acting was real bad, especially Zelda.
Yeah, I don't know if it's bad per se, but her voice is just her voice in general. I think is not necessarily a fit.
The most annoying was the blood moon. The blood moon rises once again. Be careful.
You only have to watch that once and then just skip it every time.
Yeah, I'm not very fast at skipping it. But yeah. I prefer it in this mode. But yeah. And I bought this snow quill set as soon as I possibly could. Yeah, just need to sell a whole bunch of diamonds to get enough rupees to buy these things. So yeah, that's plowing on.
Diamonds.
And maybe I will get a hold of Psychonauts now that I know it's available. I think that could be a good time. I actually think that Deathloop looks like it could potentially be good. I don't know when I'll get around to playing it, but when I get a PS5 maybe. But I actually think, because it was pointed out that it's like an immersive sim to some extent, not quite on the Deus Ex level, but it is the guys who made.
Oh yeah, it's Prey and Dishonored. Like it's Dishonored, like you can clearly see the DNA of those games in this.
Yeah, you can, yeah. But maybe this one, I like that it's got a bit of a kind of 60s spy, no one lives forever kind of aesthetic going on. I mean, I know that's overused, but I still like that aesthetic.
What surprised me about it is like having watched some footage of, like, you know, not trailer footage, because boy was I getting fatigued by the trailers, and even when there was another one of them in this PlayStation showcase to say, by the way, it's out, and it's like you didn't need to have another one of these. Like I was vaguely surprised at just how vulnerable you are as the player. Right. It's like you die real fast, it seems, and it's like they mitigate that with like a life system, so you have like 3 lives in an area. Right. But it looks like you go down real easy.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I just think, I don't know, there aren't that many games coming out these days. If one is like pretty good, that's a good candidate, isn't it? I don't know. For giving a shot.
I was just checking, like did Psychonauts 2 not come out on PC?
It should do, right? I mean, Psychonauts, the original, is on PC, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know about Psychonauts 2.
I don't even know if it came out on Steam or... Yeah, Psychonauts 2 is listed on the Windows Store, at least.
Oh, right, okay. Well, that makes sense, right? Because it's a Microsoft game now, so I guess, yeah, they always do that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Steamable. If that is your preferred carrier of video games.
Video games.
Game carrier.
Yeah.
The egg carrier.
But that's about where we are, isn't it?
Demsby Games. Don't worry, we've got Halo Infinite later.
What's going on with Halo?
I mean, it's coming out.
It's coming out. Okay.
It's coming out.
And it's free to play the multiplayer, so that'll be interesting.
Indeed. Psychonauts 2 is indeed available on Steam.
Interesting. Okay.
You have options.
And that'll be a podcast, I reckon. In terms, speak of options, you have the option to watch our YouTube channel, which has, upcoming video. What was it again?
The final of Freelancer.
No, that's right.
The finale. Yeah. And a bit of Deep Rock Galactic to come as well.
And some Deep Rock Galactic, that's right. So look out for those. Yeah, and we'll be back in a couple of weeks for another Saladcast.
Indeed. Nothing can hold us back now.
No, don't be held back.
Don't be held back. Not even flu can hold us back.
Not even by the flu.
No, I won't give up my streak of being on every podcast.
Oh, that's true. That's true. You've never missed one. I suppose I've never missed one either because I've always recorded them.
Yeah.
It's only me, the host, that misses podcast.
It's only you. It's only the talent, right?
Okay. Right, well, catch you in 2 weeks for another one of these.
Alrighty.
Bye.